This is the story of an incredible moment in history. A moment defined not by military strategies, fierce battles, or mighty armies, but by a quiet game of chess, a game that helped bring peace during a time of war. You won't believe the power of this one chess match, so let's dive into an untold tale from the past. Our story finds its setting in 1713 during the contentious War of the Spanish Succession. Europe was embroiled in chaos. Alliances had formed and dissolved as Spain's throne became the center of dispute following the death of Charles II, the last Habsburg king of Spain. Kingdoms fought fiercely for dominance, and the world felt locked in endless turmoil. England, France, Austria, and Spain, amongst others, were entangled in an exhausting game of war. It was a stalemate of sorts. And just as in chess, a stalemate on the global stage signaled desperation and tension. Enter Charles Eleanor, Duke of Lorraine, a man known not just for his political prowess, but also for his affinity for chess. Charles was a skilled player of this ancient game, often using it as a metaphor for conflict, strategy, and negotiation. He had long believed that the intricacies of chess mirrored the complexities of war. In a chess move that no one could have predicted, Charles Eleanor decided to employ this game in his next strategy, not on a battlefield, but across a negotiator's table. Here comes the grand twist. Charles knew that Philip V of Spain, one of the principal players in the war, shared his passion for chess. It was said that Philip never started his morning without solving a chess puzzle. Sensing an opportunity for diplomacy, Charles sent an intriguing message to Philip across the political divide. Would the Spanish king agree to a game of chess? But this wouldn't be just any chess game. A very unique and bold proposition accompanied Charles's challenge. The match would establish the outline of what could become a peace treaty. Philip, intrigued both by the audacity of the offer and the notion of solving the conflict through a mental game rather than continued bloodshed, agreed to this unorthodox proposal. And so, an exceptional chessboard was set in neutral territory. The sovereigns who had indirectly commanded armies to clash now sat across from each other, surrounded by diplomats, strategists, and representatives from their respective nations. The fate of conflict hung in quiet suspense over 64 squares. As the game unfolded, an unspoken message reverberated within the room. The maneuvering of each rook, the stations claimed by knights, the advancing pawns, all seemed to carry a deeper weight. A single wrong move wouldn't just cost a piece, but could influence the course of negotiations themselves. It was as though every moment of thoughtful calculation encapsulated the hope for peace. The game extended for hours. Eyes in the room were glued to the chessboard, breaths held as moves were executed with careful deliberation. One observer later remarked that he felt as though he were watching nations clash not on battlefields, but right there on a head-sized wooden stage. Yet, amidst the tension, something remarkable unfolded. There was dialogue. There was mutual respect. Player to player, mind to mind, the opponents began to see a glimpse of shared humanity. It was no longer merely about Spain versus Austria, or about who would dominate a monarchy. It was two individuals in pursuit of a solution, not for victory, but for resolution. Finally, in one remarkable sequence, Charles sacrificed his queen, a move that stunned Philip. Such a daring gambit revealed not cockiness, but a sense of cooperative risk. Upon this realization, Philip made a move equally surprising. It was a softening of position, literally and figuratively. The two men exchanged not just moves, but words that transcended the board. Diplomacy took its shape. By the end of their encounter, while neither player had achieved a checkmate, both had achieved something far greater. They had reached an agreement in principle that would become a framework for the Treaty of Utrecht, signaling the end of the War of the Spanish Succession. Though history may not remember the exact sequence of their game or the pieces played, it remembers the results sparked by two leaders willing to exchange an age-old game for an age-old conflict. The Treaty of Utrecht is still lauded by historians as one of the most significant early efforts toward multinational diplomacy. And while you'd be tempted to think that its creation was a product of drawn-out talks behind mahogany doors, the truth is, some of it stemmed from a chess set placed squarely in neutral territory. What's incredible is the lesson this story teaches us, even centuries later. The brilliance of diplomacy is not always in grand speeches or military strength, but in the shared interests and passions of people. When Charles and Philip agreed to face each other across that chessboard, they harnessed the spirit of problem-solving and, in doing so, reshaped their world. Think about it. Two kings, with everything to lose, stepping away from armies and turning to simple strategy to reconcile massive differences. What a uniquely human story that is. So, the next time someone dismisses chess as just a game or diplomacy as mere words, remember the historical hidden gem of this story. And who knows, maybe next time you're strategizing about something as simple as a board game, you're training your mind for a challenge far bigger than you'd ever imagine. Thanks for joining this episode of Historical Hidden Gems. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to hear more tales like this. History is full of stories just waiting to inspire and amaze us. See you next time.